Right, page 37, specifications. Let's look at what is a specification. It is a detailed description of an item and describes its features and qualities. In civil engineering works, it is a detailed description of materials to be used, standard of workmanship to be maintained, performance of the works when completed, method of test to check compliance, and manner in which payment is made. Now, all this does not make sense to you. Let me tell you why. Because up until now, third year, you've been taught how to design things. You can design a pipe network, you can design a beam, you can design a steel structure. That design is actually useless without this, without a specification. Who's it for? What's it going to do? Where's it going to be built? The method it's going to be built. How often are you going to be paid until it is completed? That is not encompassed within that design that you've done. This is where your items such as that, as I've just mentioned, comes in. All right. So we need to basically tell a story for that design to work. And all that happens in the specification and the bill of quantities, which we'll come to in a moment. This line, very important. It amplifies the drawings and schedules of quantities and therefore read in conjunction with them. So you don't look at just the drawing, you look at everything. All right. Amplifies the drawings, gives the drawings more meaning. All right. And now schedule of quantities, also bill of quantities, same thing. Okay, same thing. And is therefore read together. All right, 2.1 general principles. Specification should be clear and without ambiguity. What does ambiguity mean? Two meanings or more. All right. Why? Why? Because at some point, this document with the drawings and the specification is going to go out into the world. When I say go out into the world, it's going to be advertised in a newspaper, and contractors from across the country is going to come through and buy it. There is going to be a contact person on that advert, should there be any queries. That contact person should, my personal belief, always be the person who designed the tender document, because only he will have an in-depth knowledge of what's in there. And if somebody had to query it, he doesn't want to shift it to somebody else and somebody else and somebody else. Eventually, the client gets frustrated, or the tenderer or the contractor gets frustrated. All right, so you'll be able to explain what's in there if there's any ambiguous meanings. Complete and fully descriptive of all requirements. Now, this is somewhat fishy. Too much information makes the tender document look complicated. Too less information means that the contractor or proposed tenderer will not want to give it enough attention. So an adequate balance needs to be found. Arrange in logical order of carrying out work, that you put the foundation first, then the roof, and not vice versa. Fair and reasonable. Understanding requirements and expecting more on the job is unfair and dishonest. Leave out information and hope that the tender does that part of the work. Now that's what we're talking about. Don't leave it out. Overstating requirements leads to unnecessary high tendered rates. So if it's too much, he's going to think it's complicated and he's going to over-tender. And you will not meet your budget for that particular project. Your client may tell you, you know what, too expensive, I can't do it, forget it. You lose out on these supervisory fees that is quite considerable in terms of contracts. As brief, now this contradicts something up here. It contradicts that, doesn't it? Be as brief but fully descriptive. Now, this kind of thing, you only get with time after doing a couple of contracts with a lot of guidance. So trust me, when you start work, you're not going to be given a tender document to do. All right, you'll gradually be opened up to that. Avoid repetition, obvious. Use customary abbreviations such as SANS, MPA, which you should be familiar with now. should be familiar. Use tables and lists and the headings, as these takes less space and are easier to read. Requirements of a specification writer. First and foremost, good command of the language. That comes with time and a lot of reading. Ability to express requirements clearly and briefly, again, with time. Good technical vocabulary, good understanding of construction methods and procedures, sound understanding of legal terminology in contracts, sound knowledge of construction materials, knowledge of tests, procedures, and techniques, knowledge of materials and labor costs, knowledge of government policies and practice. Now, I'm not saying you have to know all this upon graduation. Like I said, gradually, you will be picking up on all of these kind of things in the course of your employment. So it would come with time. We at DUT give you a knowledge of these things. We'll come to this in GCC, right? You do pracs, comes in there. Material, subject called materials. Labor costs, not so much. Government policies and practices, nothing to my knowledge, all right? So it'll come with time. Latest technical construction materials development. So when you start working, they will introduce you to the latest stuff. If we've been doing some stuff that you consider is old, industry is at the cutting edge and they will introduce you to that. So don't be afraid of all these bullet points and feel, you know what, I'm not ready to work. All right, schedule of quantities, BOQ. Purpose of a schedule of quantities is to provide a complete list, right? Look at this. This is critical because your exam, the BOQ in your exam consists maybe 80 to 90 marks out of 150 or 120. All right, so critical stuff we come into. Right, it comprises a complete list of all the items and hence by implication, the materials and labor. I will not be doing labor, right? Labor, the rates are all current and there's issue around hours, so I don't want to get into that, right? We'll just do materials for now. Necessary for the completion of any project and to enable a person to compile an estimate, enable a person, should have been contractor, to compile an estimate of the cost of the project, cost plus his profit. All right. It provides a common basis on which all tenderers, all tenderers. The bill of quantities is the same in every single tender document for that particular project. To base their prices also avoids the expense to each tenderer of working up his own schedule of tendering. So remember I said, if I leave it to assumption, then my model answer changes. I never leave things for you to assume. That's what I'm saying here when you devise a tender document. Never let them assume anything. Because then he builds his own bill of quantities and comes up with some fantastic price. And then they will collude, they'll get together and throw the price of a very cheap contract overboard. So avoids the expense of each tender, but saves you when you basically design the bill of quantities. Right, method of compilation and arranging a specification. There are various alternative methods of describing materials, and any one or any combination of these methods may be used. A full description of the material component is given, together with its different characteristics which are considered desirable or undesirable. Appropriate test requirements can also be stated. So if you want to do DPCs, slum tests, you can request for this in a tender document. The standard specification, which is now SANS, reference applicable to the material can be stated with further reference to the class or type that will be required where further differentiation is necessary. The name of the manufacturer or brand of the material or the source of supply can be stated, all right? But these days we tend to stay away from brands. All right, a short description of the required material can be given together with the prime cost amount, which amount will include the article plus any delivery cost to site, such as railage, shippage, cartage, and all of that. Packing costs, customs duty, if any, if you're importing some material from another country. Right, sources of information. When compiling a specification, the specification writer will use information available from various sources as follows. Yes, so you can use previous specifications from older tender documents, right? But remember, update to the latest techniques. Contract drawings. The draft preliminary construction drawings are usually available before the specification is written, and these show the character and extent of the work. Work through the drawings and extract all the details. Now, work through the drawings and extract. That is what I will give you, and that is what I will teach you in the lectures to come. Employer requirements. Any employer or client requirements must be incorporated into the specification. For example, the program to completion, a first section. Avoid using or interfering with a certain area of the site. These could affect the pricing of the works. Right, site investigation information such as soil conditions, groundwater table should be included. The contractor should have the fullest information possible to avoid uncertainties in his tender. Why? Because if you didn't do a geotechnical report that shows the water table is right there, the contractor wins the tender and he basically starts work. And the moment he starts digging, he finds it fills up with water. He can't work. So he needs to bring in a pump, continuously pump the water out so that he can work. All right. Now, he didn't know about the situation because your tender document wasn't up to scratch. He finds an opportunity now to basically extort a whole lot of money from you because you messed up. Who else you going to get to pump all that water out? He's on site, he's the contractor. All right, so this is what I'm trying to tell you. Fullest information possible so that he doesn't have to find an avenue or a route to extract more money out of you because you messed up in telling him this. If you told him this at the moment, before he won the tender or in the tender document, that the water table is very, very high, he should have placed this within his tender. So he can't come back to you and complain to you, oh no, I didn't know. It's in the tender document which you signed and won. All right, so you can throw it back to him. If he runs at a loss, he's baby. All right, so that's what we're trying to get. I'm trying to protect you as a new engineer on a construction project where the documentation and where the conditions are or should be fully made available right at the outset. Codes of practice. Reference can be made to a code of practice that will result in good standing without lengthy descriptions. We'll talk about SANS 1200 as we progress. Very important for the tender document, very important for you because it will protect you from a lot of nonsense that contractors can get up to. All right. Trade catalogs, where specific articles are being used, details can be obtained from the supplier or manufacturers. All right, so let's look at this. Project specification. Now I'm giving you a sample, right? When we come to your assignment, you're going to do something similarly, right? Where you're going to make up a fictitious site, right? You're going to make up a fictitious site. But what is it? Should any requirement of the project specification conflict with any requirement or any other relevant specification, the requirement of the project specification shall prevail, we say. All right, this is the specification. First, portion one, the works. Now, we're going to go through this and you can see little information, but a lot of information, or few words, but a lot of information. This contract covers the site works for the Department of Water Affairs. So the client, basically the specification is telling you who the client is, right? Which is the Department of Water Affairs. What is the project? New bulk water supply depot. So it's a water project. Right. Location, Howick. It is in KZN, Midlands. Right, so location. So in 2 lines and a bit, we found out who the client, what work, where. Now, if you worked for a company that builds roads primarily, is this a contract for you? No. Immediately, no, you'll know. This is not my area. Leave it alone. Move on. All right, description of the site and access. The site is situated approximately 7 kilometers west of Howick. Now we're getting in depth. All right, way in Howick, about 7 km on the main trunk road to Bulwer. So maybe going north, maybe going south. I don't know where Bulwer is. Access to the site is off the main trunk road. The site, formerly cultivated land, possibly sugarcane, is flat with a gentle slope towards the trunk road. So we're saying it's off the main road. It was cultivated land, which means there's nothing there. There could be a sugarcane field, it could be brush, right? Could be a small forest. It's flat, thank God, so no hills. I won't have to bring in big plant to flatten. Gentle slope, okay, we can work with that. So we're getting more information. So this is what I'm trying to show you. When you come up with your fictitious one, this is the kind of information I'm going to be reading and looking for. Right, character of the strata and materials on site. Strata, what's the strata? Right, different layers below the ground. Clay, weathered, granite, shale. Right, the strata and natural ground level. All right, so the strata. All right, 4 trial holes. So saying there has already been a geotechnical investigation done because we dug 4 trial holes. The position logs of the holes are shown in the drawing. It is anticipated that not all the material excavated on the site for roads, pipe trenches, or foundations will be suitable for the use of pipe bedding material. And that some selected material for backfill and road construction will have to be imported. So there's a problem. Contractors sees it immediately. I need to import road building material and pipe bedding material. Let me quickly check where in the area of Howick is the local or closest quarry. All right, if it's too far, then I'll have to go to Pietermaritzburg to bring in the material. So there's a cost implication for him already. Slowly, he's trying to build in his mind how he's going to price this thing without losing. All right, so can you see how the specification is giving information that he's going to use to fill in his tender document so that he makes a profit? All right, now if you leave out these kind of things, what's going to happen? He's going to come back to you and say, hey, you didn't tell me this. If the cost per cube of G5 material is 100 Rand, I'm going to charge you 700 Rand. Right, and you can't do anything about it. You can fight with him, maybe give you a discount of 25 Rand or something. But you created this problem. All right, details of the contract. The contract includes the following construction work. Sewer, stormwater, reticulation, right? My company does sewer, stormwater, and reticulation, so good, I can do that. Fire mains and electrical, no, my company doesn't do that, so I have to get an electrical contractor on site. All right, I have a pal, he works in Richards Bay. Will he come to Howick? I don't know, maybe I'll have to find somebody local. Can you see how the brain starts working in terms of the type of work and how he's going to manipulate his resources to do this work? All right, ducting to an extent drawing, right? 1.2 megaliter concrete reservoirs, okay, I can build this, has a pump house, including interconnecting pipe, which I can do, but excludes the pumps, which are to be supplied by, okay, great. I don't have to find a mechanical engineer and a mechanical engineering company to come and put in those pumps, right? Because it's not my field, I'm civil. So I can do that, and I can build that. Now, everything else supplied by others, so the client is gonna take on that responsibility. A road culvert at the entrance of the site and associated access. Oh, it's got a road culvert. So this, why would you put in a road culvert? Maybe there's a stream lying somewhere. Right, if there's a stream lying somewhere, maybe I can extract water. Ooh, maybe I can save some money there. Does the contract say anything about using or not using that water? Let's see. If it doesn't, I'm safe. I can use it. If it does, then I'll have to import the water. Or I'll have to go the formal route of going to the local municipality, making a big application, paying for that, and waiting for them to come and put in before I actually start the work. Can you see how just from that, his mind starts working on the possible things and scenarios that may arise from that kind of activity that is required on this job. Construction program, it is envisaged that the works will be completed for full handover of the site on or before 31st October 2020. What year are we at? We are in 2019. And we are in, let's see, April 2019. Okay, I bought the tender last week. I'm filling it in. It probably takes about 2 months for this adjudication to happen. So that's April. Let's leave April out. April, May, June. So somewhere in June, he's going to award. If he awards it in June, by the time I get on the site, it's July. All right, so July to October. July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 months to do this? Yes, possible. Very possible for me to do this. I got over a year to finish this project. Yes, it's capable. I have the resources, I have the staff, and he's giving me 16 months from cost perspective, a handover. And that could be more, could be 15 or 17, depending on this. Therefore, yes, I can still, if it worst case scenario 15, I can still do it. Can you see? Just those 2 lines, his mind is working. All right, size facilities are required, and you can say there, right, what's required? You require a toilet, you need site officers, those kind of things. Features requiring special attention. If there's something on the site that he needs to be made aware of, here is a code for it. Is there anything that requires special attention? Yes, there is a community in the immediate vicinity, and they have lots of cows and sheep, so you'll have to put a fence in. Otherwise, you're going to have livestock on your site. All right, source of material for the road. The contractor will be held responsible for locating sources of pipe bedding and road construction material. Here, the tender document tells me that's my baby. All right, moving on. Yes, Ted, applicable standardized and particular specifications. The following standardized specifications shall form part of the contract documentation. SANS 1200. Now, SANS 1200 is a massive document, it's about so thick, all right? If you put into your specification that this tender follows SANS 1200, you save yourself a lot of problems. How? Because if you omitted something, if you didn't give a dimension in terms of site clearance, SANS 1200 covers that automatically. All right. So if the contractor deviates from that or does his own thing, and because you put in SANS 1200 in your tender document, you can basically pull out SANS 1200 and tell him, here, there's the tender document, there's it stipulating SANS 1200, this is what you were supposed to do. And you didn't. Therefore, fix this now. But the moment you leave this out, then you are in the wind. He can do as he pleases. All right, so critical that you put in at least some wording that says that this tender document is based on SANS 1200. And you can give them which parts, because SANS 1200 has about 20 parts to it. All right. In addition, the following particular specifications that are bound in the document shall apply. So here we go. Part of SANS 1200 is waterproofing and outlet for works. Right? PS2, variations to requirements or specifications listed in PS10. If there's any variations, and they are, structural concrete or structural concrete materials, Sand from the Impendle River is not acceptable. They're telling me there's a river nearby, that's the name of the river, but the sand within it, you can't use. Maybe it has too much salt and it interferes with concrete or cement strength over time. Admixtures, no admixtures will be permitted. So don't try and fix the sand by putting an admixture. The consultant or you, the engineer, are way ahead of the contractor. They already know these things. All right. Construction, casting of concrete in excavations. Structural concrete shall not be cast directly against the side of any excavation without the use of any shuttering unless prior approval has been obtained by the obtained in writing from the engineer. All right, so you know what they're saying. You can't use the excavated side to pour your concrete. Mass concrete may be cast against the side of any excavation. All right, 2.7, schedule of quantities. Purpose of a schedule of quantities to provide a complete list of all the items, and hence by implication, the materials labor necessary for the completion of any project and to enable a person to compile an estimate of the cost of the project. It provides a common basis on which all tenderers will base their prices, which we've already said. Schedule of quantities, also BOQ. Right, types of items in the schedule of quantities. Now, this table that you see here, all right, this table that you see here and the one that's coming up in a moment is what you will have to produce in your test or test 2 and your exam. All right, types of items in schedule of quantities, you've got these things and they work. All right, but we're not going to go into those kind of things. We're just going to look at quantities for now. All right, steps in preparing a schedule, list the items. I'll show you how to do that. Record relevant dimensions. We'll put in dimensions. We'll do the calculations and we'll transfer to a schedule. I'll show you how to do all this as we progress. Now, taking off. When I say taking off, this has got nothing to do with aeroplane taking off. Okay? Principles of taking off. I will show you how to do this. Right? A measurement paper is what you will be producing. I'm not giving it to you. Okay? Number and sequencing, we will do that. Right? Symbols, yes, we'll come to that. Simplification of basic shapes and dimensions. That's what quantity is all about. Basic geometry. All right. Specification by omitting minor quantities. I will show you what's minor. Very few are minor. All right. And I'll explain why when we come to it. All right. Let's look at the measurement paper. All right. Basically, these are the columns. But let's look at the measurement paper. This is it. This is what you will have to memorize. First one, SANS 1200 reference. We'll use SANS 1200 reference to put in a code here. Factor refers to the number of items that are in the structure. Right, dimensions, naturally you understand what that is, dimensions of what you're calculating. And then you got a total. All right, description. What item is it? Unit, meter cube, meter squared, ton, those are them. And how much? 6, 12, X, Y, Z. Don't worry about that. We leave out that. So this is what I want you to commit to memory. All right. Go back to this page here. Okay, let's go here. Let's go here. All right, we look at each of these columns when we start, all right? But for now, I just want to look at the last one. Work to the following practical accuracies. Now, the reason I put this particular comment here is because we had issues over the semesters when students did their calculations. All right, let's look at the first one. 2.475 tons, square meters, or cubic meters, rounds off to that. That's all I want. Don't put blah, 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 blah. All right. 5.136 pockets cement rounds off to 6 because you can't buy that amount of pockets. And 3.005 sets of tires rounds up to 4 sets of tires. That you already know from estimation. Now, due to the nature of the tendering process, where tenders are adjudicated to the last cent, we will, for the purpose of this course, strictly adhere to the above accuracy. Okay, I've adjudicated numerous tenders in the course of my jobs. And at the end of the day, the last cent wins the tender. How did we come to that? You will see when we start quantifying, we'll be working with some strange shapes, right? And you'll have to find the area. Or ordinarily, you can choose L times B and assume it's a rectangle. But this little part here, somebody else actually calculated it and came up with a different number that affected his tender price. All right, that's why I will not be reducing shapes to the most simplest calculation. We will include that part. That's what this is all about. Okay,